Let's get into this. We're doing a deep dive today into, well, a really foundational story. Cain and Abel, Genesis chapter 4.
Yes, exactly. We're really focusing just on the text itself, Genesis 4, trying to see what insights are there.
Right. And the mission, I suppose, is to go beyond just knowing the story, to really grapple with the big questions it raises.
It kicks off with such hope, doesn't it, after Eden?
Yeah. Eve has Cain, her firstborn, and she says that line, "I've gotten a man with the help of the Lord." It feels like a fresh start.
A real sense of possibility. And then Abel arrives, the second brother.
And the story moves quickly to this act of worship. Both brothers bringing something to God.
Cain, he brings fruit from the ground, what he's cultivated.
And Abel, he offers something different, the firstborn from his flock. The best parts, it says.
Right. And this is the pivot point.
Definitely. God accepts Abel's offering, but not Cain's.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately you ask,
Mm-hmm.
why? What was the difference? Was it just a type of offering?
Well, the text in Genesis doesn't spell it out completely.
Yeah.
But later on in Hebrews, there's that reference.
Ah, yes. Hebrews 11.4.
Exactly. It says Abel offered his gift by faith, which strongly suggests it wasn't just about the lamb versus the vegetables,
It was something internal.
Something about the heart, the posture behind the gift. Maybe Cain, maybe his offering lacked that genuine faith, that sense of surrender, even if it was the result of his own work.
That really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How often we might just go through the motions, offering something without that core belief or trust behind it.
It's a challenging thought, and Cain's reaction to the rejection is, well, it's visceral.
Pure anger, fury, the text says. He was incredibly upset.
Yes, and it's right at that moment, that critical point, that God actually speaks to him directly.
That's Genesis 4, verse 7, right?
That's the one. If you do well, you not be accepted, and if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door.
Oof, that image. Sin like a predator.
Crouching, yeah, waiting. It's incredibly vivid.
But then God adds, its desire is contrary to you, but you must rule over it.
Exactly. The responsibility is placed right on Cain. You see the danger, you feel the pull, but you must master it. The choice is his.
It emphasizes that human agency, even when facing these really strong, dark impulses.
But he doesn't rule over it, tragically.
No. He ignores the warning, takes Abel out into the field.
And commits the first murder. Brother killing brother. It's just stark. A terrible outcome from that initial anger and jealousy.
And then comes that haunting question from God.
Where is Abel, your brother?
And God obviously knows the answer. It's a question for Cain's sake, isn't it?
It's a confrontation, yeah. An opportunity for confession, perhaps?
But Cain deflects, with possibly the most famous deflection in history. Am I my brother's keeper?
That line just echoes, doesn't it? It's the ultimate denial of responsibility, of connection.
And you see it play out still, that reluctance to be responsible for each other. It feels very relevant.
Very much so. And God's response to Cain's dismissal is profound.
What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is crying to me from the ground.
Wow. Even in death, silenced by violence, Abel's life cries out. It signifies that our actions, especially harmful ones, they resonate. They have consequences that demand attention.
Justice, yeah. And the consequence for Cain is severe. He's cursed.
To be a wanderer, a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth, never finding rest, cut off from the ground that received his brother's blood.
But then there's that strange element of grace, or maybe protection.
The mark, yes. God puts a mark on Cain. It's fascinating.
It's not to punish him further, but to protect him from being killed in revenge.
Even in judgment, there's this element of preservation. It complicates our ideas about simple retribution, doesn't it?
It really does. And then what does Cain do? He goes and builds a city.
Yeah, the first city mentioned, named after his son Enoch. It's kind of paradoxical, this foundation of civilization rooted in exile and violence.
And the story follows his descendants for a bit.
And it shows progress in some ways, skills develop, metalworking, music.
Jubal, Tubal-Cain, they invent things.
Right. But alongside that, the violence escalates. It seems to get worse, not better.
Culminating in Lamech.
Ah, Lamech. His boast is chilling. He basically says, if Cain is avenged 7 times, I'll be avenged 77 times. It's this unchecked pride and vengeance.
So the ripple effects of that first sin seem to spread and intensify. It's quite a bleak picture.
It is, but the chapter doesn't end there. There's a shift.
Right, back to Adam and Eve. They have another son.
Seth. Eve sees him as a replacement, appointed by God for Abel, whom Cain killed.
A new beginning for a different line.
And this line brings a different kind of development. The chapter closes with Seth's son, Enosh, and this statement.
Genesis 4.26.
Yeah.
At that time, people began to call upon the name of the Lord.
Yes. After the story of violence and wandering and escalating vengeance, you get this return to worship, a conscious turning back towards God. It's a sign of spiritual renewal.
A glimmer of hope, then, at the end of a pretty dark chapter. So if we were to sort of pull out the main threads, the key takeaways from this whole story.
Well, first, I think, is the emphasis on the heart. Worship, our offerings, whatever they are, it's not just the external act. It's the internal disposition, the faith, the sincerity behind it. That seems crucial.
Yeah, that really comes through.
Yeah.
Are we just performing, or is it genuine?
Second, the destructive potential of those raw emotions. Anger, jealousy. The story is a stark warning about letting them run unchecked.
They need to be acknowledged, yes, but also, as God told Cain, ruled over.
Precisely. Which leads to the third point. Choice. Even when sin is crouching at the door, the choice, the responsibility to act rightly remains. We aren't simply puppets of our impulses.
That's a powerful reminder of human agency.
And finally, that question. Am I my brother's keeper?
It hangs in the air, doesn't it?
It does. And the story powerfully implies the answer is yes. We are connected. We do have a responsibility towards one another. The scope of that is something we constantly have to wrestle with.
Absolutely. What does that look like for us today?
So for our next deep dive, we'll actually see how things develop from here. The world growing, both in wickedness, unfortunately, but also in faith. We'll encounter figures like Enoch, who walked with God.
Sounds fascinating. So maybe a final thought for everyone listening, reflecting on Cain and Abel.
Perhaps consider your own offerings, not just religious ones, but your work, your efforts, your relationships. What's the heart behind them? What motivates you?
And alongside that, maybe reflecting on that question of responsibility, how far does your sense of being your brother's or sister's keeper extend?
Good questions to ponder. It's about offering our best, genuinely, and guarding our hearts against those destructive forces.
A constant challenge. Thanks for digging into this with us.
Always insightful.